Hi. What's up, Star People? Welcome to Star People Storytime. My name is Envy McKee, but you knew that because you're on my page. As you can tell, I'm feeling much better. I even have my signature sarcasm back. I'm doing what I would expect someone who is reading a script would be doing. So, today we are reading chapters 9 and chapters 10. And it turned out whatever I thought that I had to fix. Hi, Roosevelt Woodson, welcome. It turns out I thought whatever I had to fix yesterday, which was keeping me from reading chapter 9 with chapter 8, really wasn't anything I need to fix. These two chapters are transitional chapters, and they're very important with the setup of the rest of the story. So whatever I thought I was fixing, after deep perusal, I figured out there was no fixing that needed to be fixed. Just maybe some zhuzhes. And some zhuzhes happen. Hey Raj, welcome. Amin, welcome. Oh my God, my peoples and them are here. Okay, so yeah. So chapters. So what I was just saying was that I thought that I could not read chapter 9 last night, and I really couldn't because it was really just kind of like a tonight thing. They're set up. Okay, so I'm going to say this. Chapter 9 and chapter 10 are set up chapters. They're very important for the setup for the rest of the story. So we can just say that. And I'm going to stall a little more because that's what this is. This is the tap dance. We're waiting for everybody to kind of gather. Hi, Bernard. Welcome. This is the tap dance while we wait for the crew to come together. And we can start reading. So, just to recap, last night we read chapter 8, and we understand that Kai and her new husband, are having some issues. Woo! And we figured out that Kai is still a little hurt because she had to face her ex-elder boo. And so she kind of like is thrust into, her supposedly perfect marriage scenario, and she's just not having a good Kai day. And then maybe it turns out that whatever she thought she experienced wasn't true, that maybe she didn't even eat what she thought she ate. So she might be, and remember she has issues with dreams. And now these are all concepts that would be far more powerful, and this is like my shameless plug, if you read books 1 and book 2, because they're all themes that were very strongly dealt with in the first 2 books. So I'm just saying that is my shameless plug. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're all pieces to a puzzle. We already talked about that. So if the gang's all here, we shall get started with chapter 9, which is titled Revolution, but actually it's like evolution because the R is in parentheses, so I'm sure that's like some deep, clever thing that I came up with in my head that you can't tell about. It's like, see, you get it? No, you can't see it here. Anyway, so the quote is, "I will love the light for it shows me the way, yet I will endure the darkness because it shows me the stars." And Mandino wrote that. Isn't that cute? Okay, so the next few days were uneventful. Kai and Kaitu hid their most precious cargo, the young Magnanite tree, exactly where Kai insightfully figured out it should go. They decidedly kept the rest of their tribe out of the loop, if only because it made everything less complicated for her. Shady as it seemed, even among her people, including her husband, she didn't truly know who she could trust beyond her daughter. She anticipated the best thing she could do was follow her individual instructions with as minimal group input as possible. She had never fully grasped what had gone on with the raspberries dream. She felt crazy about it. You notice that she's calling it a dream. She felt crazy about it, but she was used to feeling crazy about her life and the circumstances therein. If she wanted to be poetic about the dream specifically, there was a lot of very powerful imagery going on between how the dream started, with her longing for Eden fruit, and then moved into being ready to nurse baby Kai-Tu. Then it swished around into an evolved conversation with Yaman, only to culminate in Kai-Tu's bedroom in their new home. She spent most of her days racking her brain about that very imagery. She came up with more than a few flimsy theories that served little purpose except to piss her off while she continued to rack her brain. She had plenty of time to rack her brain about it, too. The very next day, Kai-Tu started her new school. Lara went back to her practice and invited Jasperai to join her. She and Jasperai had been cordial, but she was sure he had not recovered from their disagreement. She hadn't. She had only said what he already knew. She didn't trust them, and they didn't trust her much either. She assumed they all had very good reasons. She had spoken her reasons, but he had never spoken his. It didn't matter. Not being in good terms with the person she was supposed to be sharing her most intimate life with made it easier for her to focus. At least, that's what she told herself. Jasperai didn't care for humans, nor their earthly ways. She assumed it was exactly her humanness and her inability to just play along that caused their rift. She was a loose cannon. None of the Stai were loose cannons, except maybe Darren, who didn't come around much because he went back to work at casino. Kai had no intention of going back to that insanity, so she had to find something else to do while she figured out what else to do. To finally answer Yaman's question, without the pressure of actually answering it under pressure, she realized she wasn't happy. She wasn't sure if she loved her husband now that they returned to Earth under such crazy circumstances, as much as she loved him in Tuesday under perfect circumstances. This acknowledgement caused her pause because technically, if she loved him, the circumstances wouldn't matter, which of course caused her to wonder if what she and Jasperai were going through presently is what her mother and father went through when they first arrived to Earth as Lovianhal. What if her do-gooder rebel mother was the one that got all bored with the rules of her Aphrodisian kind when they got here? And maybe her play-by-the-rules father got all weird about it and cracked up into the demon he turned himself into. Maybe her mother, too, had a lost love that she mourned, which made her all distant to be around. Maybe that's why Kuai-Yin relished her freedom from attachment so much. Maybe she really wanted to come and go as she pleased, to do the work she was sent to do without feeling all second-guessed by everyone around her. Maybe. But at the moment, all Kai had was speculation, because she hadn't been in touch with her mother lately either. Not in any tangible sense. If normalcy is what she craved, she was nowhere close. It was with this sentiment that she found herself in her bedroom with her computer open. She felt this unshakable urge to write. She had so much to say, and no one truly she could talk to about all the things she was experiencing, especially all of her fears and doubts. She had hoped her marriage would bring her a living witness to her life. But also soon she was starting to believe that the marriage she chose was closer to an earth-saving business arrangement that she had jumped into before she thought it all through. Who does that? She bought the Stai just choose and do crap, hook, line, and sinker. Who wouldn't? Her freaking husband is perfect. But was he perfect for her? It didn't matter. It didn't matter at this point, did it? She was in it now. She was pregnant, for Christ's sake. She was pregnant. She looked down at her belly. There were no rainbow lights now giving her away. She felt more like a vessel in this pregnancy than she had with Kai-Tu. She loved being pregnant with Kai-Tu. It was everything to her. She was so flush with love, it didn't matter that Henny was the worst possible choice to make a baby with. Same with her pregnancy in her Yai. But this pregnancy was different. It was neutral. At first, she was flushed with so much love, but by the time she got back and had done all that she'd done, the two babies living inside her felt more like an afterthought than a miracle. They actually felt like an agreement. She said yes, and there was no haphazard enjoying the process of trying. She said yes, and here they are. Growing inside her to be, she presumed, the link between the Stai and humans on an evolving Earth. There had to be more to it. There had to be. Everything just lined up too perfectly. Way too Stai. What were they up to? Did they presume that Earthlings needed to be fixed like their water and their food? Did they presume that in our imperfection, that the only way to evolve was the way they chose us to? Kai wasn't buying that. The Magni brought to life the dream of a little girl. They ran with that. We're back. We're back. Hold on. Welcome in Morocco. Well, wait a second. I'm gonna jump. Oh. Okay. Lord. Okay, we're back. We're back. I had to take it off of Wi-Fi. Man, let me tell you, the men in black are looking for me. I'm telling all their secrets right now. I'm just gonna let everybody come back. I love story time. Oh, you see my vision board back there? You see? Okay, let me see. Where were we? Okay, so I'll read this thing over. There had to be more to it. There had to be. Everything just lined up too perfectly. Way too Stai. What were they up to? Did they presume that Earthlings needed to be fixed like their water and their food? Did they presume that in our imperfection that the only way to evolve was the way they chose us to? Kai wasn't buying it. The Magni brought to life the dream of a little girl. They ran with that and did everything to preserve and evolve from that. That was their ideal. That's why they stayed so much in control of themselves. Which isn't a bad thing if you think about it. But humans, Earthlings, are different. And their evolution should be different too. Humans wouldn't even know to aspire to be more like the Stai. So why wouldn't they want to simply aspire to be more of what they would want to be? Why would they want to be clones of what already exists? Especially if they could be much more, if that was their choice. Why should they aspire to wings if they didn't want them, or perfect food? Well, she considered that maybe no one of sound mind would truly choose to eat the crap food Earth people ate, unless coerced. The thought caused Kai's stomach to rumble. She realized that she still hadn't eaten a single thing since the raspberry incident. Why? Why wasn't she hungry? It'd been days. Why hadn't she thought to eat anything? There was perfect Stai food everywhere she looked, and none of it appealed to her. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw something catching the light from the window. Everything in her room glistened, to be sure, but this was different. When she turned to face the specific glisten, she saw the crystal table. Oh, 2 chairs and an empty crystal bowl. Honey, she wasn't dreaming. Adjacent to them, a wall of plants had turned up. She stood from her desk chair to meet the food that made her crazy enough to rebuke her own self. The plants, all of them, smelled so wonderful she didn't hesitate to fill the bowl with each and everything she saw. When the bowl was full of as many colored foods as would fit first go round, she took a seat at the crystal table. She took enough time to breathe in the possibilities of what was going to taste and smell before she dove in. Of what she was going to taste and smell before she dove in. When every morsel was eaten and she was good and full, she stood up from the table with a simple bow. She then turned her heel toward her waiting desk chair. When she looked back at the window, she was not really all that surprised that the wall of plants, the crystal table, chairs, and bowl were all going, what in the world? She wanted to bother. She wanted to ask the ceiling if she was crazy enough to have gotten full from something she made up, but she still tasted the many gorgeous flavors in her mouth. If crazy was what was happening to her, it tasted delicious. That's a tweetable. And that's where she started her writing from. A sense of fullness from the impossible. The story of her life by all accounts. A blank page was staring at her from her computer screen. She felt compelled to fill it, so she started simply by typing the title, shift of the people. But once she started typing, there was little she could do to stop until she finished. She sat for a long while, staring at her computer, looking at the words she wrote and wondering why she would write such things and why they were numbered. Would there be more? She knew she was reading about a revolution. She was telling people to prepare. But why would she write such things? She had no intention to be in a war of any sort, and yet her words were clear. She knew she truly hadn't written those words. She knew something or someone was working through her. Maybe it was Damascus. This is a book 2 reference. Or her mother. But what did any of it truly mean? Her mind started to cloud up with the tidal waves of violence that had plagued the earth for some time. She saw excerpts from her yai. She saw violent scenes where the anger gene had taken over everything, like it had her father. Then she saw her father, not as she had seen him in her yai, but as Lovianhal, as he once was, working toward the evolution of the people of Earth. She then saw his slow transformation from great man to withered soul, and how that withered soul had affected and infected so many more souls of Earth and beyond. She felt in her bones a hunger and a rumble that couldn't be satiated by magical bowls of fruit. It was something else. It was a deep desire for justice for the people of Earth who had earned it with their untimely deaths. She saw the millions of bodies who had been ensnarled in a human chattel industry of greed, past and present, which made way for so many countries of the world to prosper. She saw the methods of violence used to keep those bodies under control. She saw the inquisitions led by the fearful leaders of world religions and how they slaughtered bodies to disenfranchise and controlled them. She saw the wars, all of them from the beginning of time. She saw the earth ravaged, abused, and ill-begotten for profit. Then she saw the little green bodies of paper that burned holes in people's pockets. She saw how a tool for humanity's use was refashioned into idols of worship. There were other things. There was the notion of inequality based on the most trivial things that caused some people to believe their humanity was more worthy than others. She saw the audacity and stupidity of how hate played out in everyday lives. She saw the values that were cherished and that really had nothing to do with values. She saw the belief in a God that would sanction the atrocities people committed daily in the name of that God and as a justification for that cruelty. She saw the need to control, the need to divide, the need to destroy. The rest of the omniverse saw Earth as exactly these things and not much more. This is why the Lovianhal were created to start. Humans needed an intervention. Earthlings needed saviors. We needed missionaries to right our wrongs. But Kai didn't see it that way. If people of Earth were going to create a world of their own, they would have to stand up and be that world, to be that change, to be what they knew they could be. On Tuesday, they called Kai the original mother of the new Earth, just like her ancestor was the original mother of what became Tuesday, before and before and before. If this was true, if she was supposed to be the original mother of Earth, she was going to do it her way. She was of Earth. That was why they chose her, so she would choose her choice. She wasn't fully Stai. Stai was her bloodline, her stock, her heritage, but Earth was how she came to be in this continuation. She would honor both somehow. "You're on the right track, dear one," a familiar voice said from behind her with a chuckle. Kai jumped and turned around in one clean motion. Damascus? No one was behind her. "I will say you're figuring things out much more quickly than I expected." "Bravo." The voice let out a bright chuckle that clung to the streams of light flowing through her room. "Everything has changed, Kaiwan. You still have your talents," the voice said finitely. "My talents?" she asked expectantly. "Damascus?" The voice didn't answer. All right, I told you, these are setups. Setup. So there are a couple things that I will, before we go on to chapter 10 real quick. Hi, DJ Romance. Welcome. there are a couple things that I want to see. Every time I read this, I keep going, we should have started with book 1. We should have started with book 1. But we're here, so we're going to work through it. So, Sae Lovianhal, that is a term that the Stai call a missionary. So her parents, I can tell you this. I'm not going to tell you who her parents are, because you can find that out in book 1. It's very powerful stuff. And then before I even go there, in book 1 we discover, and I say it before we even start the story, that Kai is you. So, Kai is you. You know, you take your gender out of it, you take race out of it, you just recognize that the word Kai means love. And so Kai and her fuckery or whatever is just kind of like a metaphor for each of us as human beings. Okay, so that's not like that's book 1 territory, and so you kind of need that a little bit, so that you're kind of looking at the story and you kind of putting yourself in Kai's position. You're saying, okay, I'm going to live through this story. I'm going to journey this as Kai. And then I want to say that her parents were missionaries, and her mother and father came to Earth as missionaries, and they call the Sae Lovianhal. That's what missionaries are called in the planet of Tustai, okay? So they came to Earth, and the Earth was known to have an anger gene, which only affected male people, right? And, it affected everybody on Earth, but for the Stai to come, it only affected the male Stai. And so Kai's father was infected with this anger gene and went batshit crazy, and then kind of changed the trajectory of how things on Earth played out. And so that is as far as I'm taking it. I'm not telling you anymore. If you want to know how that plays out and who her father is, which is very powerful, you are going to read book 1. And you can get it on, it's on Amazon. It's in Amazon, Barnes and Noble. It's on ebook and all of that. It's powerful stuff. Okay, I said that. And I talked about the Sae Lovianhal, and I talked about Kai's parents. I talked about Kai's you. There was something else in here. I told you that these chapters are set up. And it might be confusing if you're new to the story. Yes, Raj, yes. And you know what's so cool? You know, a lot of people, Raj says, I dig that because I can relate something to my actual life. And I have a shirt on, by the way. I don't want you to think I'm unzipping and I'm just kind of like, a lot of people that read the story and they have the perspective that Kai is actually them, like that's how it's written, that Kai is kind of like a stand-in for them. A lot of people don't want to take a spiritual journey because it's a lot. But I guess the reason why it's written that way is if you take the journey as someone else, you can still get the lessons that Kai is, getting without having to be like, it's personal, it's me, So, yes, a lot of people that read the story that I've heard that have come back to me have said that it helped them either work through something or put things in perspective for them or whatever. It just got hot in here, so I'm not like stripping, it's just hot. Okay, so that's chapter 9, and you have that set up. So now we're going to go into chapter 10. I don't know what's going on. Do I need a white balance? White balance. Okay, so whoever, the way I'm sitting, whoever comes in like now late is gonna be like, is she naked? What's she doing? Is this naked? Star People story time. Okay, we're going into chapter 10, and this one is called They Know Us by Our Stars. Oh, I didn't ask if you have any questions, but I guess you can. These two chapters are related, so you can save them for the end. Write them down. Though we may never be able to comprehend human life, we know certainly that it is a movement of whatever nature it be, The existence of movement unavoidably implies a body which is being moved and a force which is moving it. Hence, wherever there is life, there is a mass moved by a force. All mass possesses inertia. All force tends to persist. Nikola Tesla wrote that. Talents. What a dumb thing to say to her under the circumstances. She tapped her forehead, knowing what she would find. There was no sign of the metal crown that had once been so prominent on her head while she was in Aphrodisia. All of the talents she collected had been stored in the eye of her crown with no inclination of her own, by no inclination of her own. If she no longer had access to her crown, how would she have access to her talents? But then she got excited. I have wings! She yelled at the window. How could I forget about my wings? She shimmied her shoulders, but nothing moved. She tried again, but still nothing. I don't have access to my wings either? Thanks for nothing, Damascus. She said out loud while rolling her eyes when she finally figured out hers was the only other voice she would hear in response to her questions. Talents. She knew she was in Tustai. She knew when she was in Tustai that she had collected a series of things, random things, that didn't seem to go to anything. She also had no idea what they were to be used for, or if she actually had any talent to wield said random collected things. She presumed her talent collecting was some metaphorical Aphrodisian test, at best. Stuff she needed to prove her mettle to her commanding grandfather. She didn't think they were things she would actually need to use on Earth at some point, which made her think about the post she just wrote. War. She hated the very idea of war, even in the poetic way she wrote it. War wasn't poetic. War was the way men roughhouse other men's egos and use big, detestable toys that destroy everything around them to do it. She knew in her bones that she wasn't born to lead a war. She didn't even participate in the war in her yayi. She was tucked away in the Eden when the battle happened in Cathedral. So much still didn't make sense. She knew that everything she experienced in her yayi and everything she experienced in Tustai meant something valuable to her journey. Some things she blew off as metaphor, but some things she knew had played out literally. She also knew that it couldn't be a coincidence that shortly after she arrived home to Earth, she would begin having the most haunting kinds of doubts. She experienced firsthand that there was no such thing as coincidence. The timing of everything was just so too close to something. She just didn't know what that something was. She and Jasper I didn't even get to enjoy the honeymoon phase of their shotgun marriage. Probably because they hadn't had a honeymoon. They were hitched, got pregnant, and back to Earth sooner than it takes most people to eat dinner. Why? What was the rush? While Earth problems were big and many, nothing much seemed to have changed since she left and returned. It was pretty much business as usual as far as she was concerned. What did the Stai know that she didn't? Talents. Maybe Damascus was onto something. Maybe if she knew what she had collected, she could make some better sense out of what was going on. She stood up abruptly to rummage through one of the boxes closest to her desk. It took a while, but finally she found what she was looking for. Her journal. She remembered buying it because she wanted to work out some things about how weird her life had gotten. She flipped the book open to feel the pages against her fingertips and to see what she had written about her life before now. Nothing. Every page she flipped was blank, but the book kept flipping to a peculiar spot near the center because one page had clearly been ripped out. Strange. She looked at the blank pages more closely to see if there were writing indents or other evidence that the book had been written in. She thought maybe she could see the faint indentation of swirls that could be letters written out fully on a previous page. Was that an S there? No. No matter. An empty book to work out her current task was better than no book. She thought maybe the best way to go about things would be to itemize everything she collected on her trip to Aphrodisia, to the best of her knowledge. She grabbed a pen and quickly scribbled the words Stellar Inventory on the top of the first page. Just writing the words made her feel fidgety at first. All of a sudden she wasn't sure she what she would gain by writing down her stellar inventory. To face herself in such an actuarial way made her uneasy. Instead of allowing herself to go down the rabbit hole of wondering why, she pushed the process along by allowing herself for agitation while writing the first words that came to mind. She thought of her first experiences when she stepped through the red door to Tuesday. Quickly, she wrote the first 4 items on her list. Number 1, red orb. Number 2, golden crown. Number 3, black wings. Number 4, golden scepter with orange flame. The red orb was what showed her what she really looked like as a stai. The golden orb she never made hay out of, mostly because most, if not all, stai wore did I say that? I'm sorry. The golden crown she never made hay out of, mostly because most, if not all, of stai wore crowns. The golden scepter she used a few times to light her way in dark places, but mostly it stayed on her back. Her wings, raven black. She was told the color of her wings was extraordinarily rare. The original mother of Tuesday had black wings when Tuesday first evolved. Jasperai's blue-gold wings changed color after he ate the magnani fruit. But at first, it was only she and her father with black wings in all of Tuesday. Interestingly enough, her father had changed his wings color from blue-gray to match her black ones before the Lovianhal departed for Earth. Interesting. The first 4 items on her list came straight away. The next part of her collection, arguably, her actual talents, she had to work for. Number 5, mirror. It showed her the dozen of Durg, her surrogate family in trouble, their connection to the Durg. Also, it showed her the methods with which the Durg would attack the people of Earth, most specifically, rainbow lava. It still sounded dumb in her head. Who would fall for rainbow lava? She would never forget the grotesque scene from the makeshift game show where she found her surrogate brother and sister, Janie and Jack, waiting in line to die. Number 6, blue flame. This was the last of the talents she collected. The blue flame came from a burning bush. It showed her Henny and persuaded her to face and forgive him. After their kiss, it joined the mirror and the eye of her crown. She wasn't getting much solace from this list. True to form, the more she learned, the less any of it made any sense. It was instinct that made her look down at the mala Davascus gave her. She remembered it really wasn't 2 similar malas that she and Jasperai both wore. It was one mala that Davascus had pulled from around his neck at her wedding. Her mind floated back to that day. I had to deliver this, he said, holding up the red mala with the ornate purple crystal that he was wearing when he gave Kai the magnani sapling. It was truly a stunner. In her awake coma and the Tuesday sun moonlight, it glowed like it was magic. Kai's heart stopped as the light reflecting from the jewel hit her eye. What is that? She asked. This, Kai of Tuesday, is the Omni Stai, or the star of all. This, too, is your birthright. It was worn by the first mother of Tuesday. It was given to me to give to you when the time was right, he said, and then held the mala higher to the sky for all to see. The echo of gasp could be heard as waves of sound resonating throughout every winged being present. He then brought the mala to hand level for Kai to hold. On its own, the mala split into 2 with different color stones. One was golden like citrine, and the other, the rich purple of the original. The guru stone of each mala was now curved, like the sun and moon in Tuesday, shaped as a yin and yang. Davascus placed the purple around Kai's neck and the golden around Jasperai's neck. Together, they make one, he said as he kissed Kai on both cheeks. When he kissed the center of the star on her forehead, the gem there glowed. He then quickly whispered in Kai's ear, Basho De'im. He bowed and then disappeared like he was never there. Basho De'im, Omni Stai, Kai said, rubbing as many of the 108 red beads between her fingers as she could, while staring intently at the purple stone. It is done. Star of all. Together they make one. her mind wandered again to another discussion with Damascus. Your joint mala, for example, the crystal that makes up the guru bead, is very special indeed. It has powers the ancients and mystics have been trying to harness since the beginning of time. It is and has been a source of protection, he had said. It was that same conversation that Damascus told them their joint mala had protected them from Mrs. Kim, both in the labyrinth and with their elder tattoos. The elder tattoos! She looked at the palm of her right hand. She squinted to see the drawing of the Mahameru in the light. The tattoo was silver and gold in color and seemed to have faded some since it first appeared. She had forgotten all about it since she'd been home. But it was there, twinkling in the light of the sun that had taken over the whole of her room. She never figured out why she and Jasperide needed a tattoo on their palm, mostly because Mrs. Kim had tampered with and almost killed them with it. Not surprisingly, it felt tainted. Damascus said that the only way Mrs. Kim could have tampered with it is if she had access to the two missing elders, and based on how Mrs. Kim found her end as a pile of trash, they all lightly assumed she was working with the Derg, so they could also lightly assume the Derg had somehow captured the two elders. This didn't make a lick of sense because first, no one saw the elders. She had only seen them when she was in a awake coma, and she didn't remember her experience with them or even how the tattoo turned up. How could the bane of the Omniverse capture beings that were both unseeable and untouchable, even to the people they wanted to be seen and touched by? For some strange reason, she got the distinct feeling that the elders gave her something else. She knew it in every fabric of her being, but she couldn't remember what. She also knew it wasn't something she could see or touch like her tattoo. It was an intangible. The questions then became, what else did the elders leave her with, and why? And what in the world was this palm tattoo really supposed to do? For good measure, she added to her written inventory, number 7, 1/2 of the Omnistai Mala, number 8, the Elder's Tattoo, and number 9, something else unknown from the Elders that could be hidden inside her body somewhere. The more she sat staring at the white walls of her room, the more flashes of things came to her mind. The most prominent was Lara's necklace. When she saw it for the first time, it was half gold and half silver, and its center stone was originally black and white. She remembered that it reminded her of a yin and yang symbol. She also remembered how intently she looked at the stone when she and Lara first met. It was the only thing besides the red door that held her full attention for any length of time. The stone turned gray after only a moment of her staring at it. Of course it was odd, but at the time she thought she was crazy. At least, crazier than now. Then, she had no confirmation that the crazy things she had experienced were linked to anything. It was different now. She expected crazy. With full crazy in mind, in order to get the Stai pyramid garden contraption on the roof to work, however it did, all 3 of their stones were in play, and they all surrounded the purple vessel filled with the mystic church soil. She looked down at her mala again. The purple vessel was made of a crystal stone that looked a heck of a whole lot like the guru bead she was presently rubbing on. And what of the sapling? When Damascus finally told her of the ancient scroll that supposedly foretold everything that seemed to be coming to pass, he was very specific about the tree. The ancients of the highest realms have a scroll in their possession that speaks to the First Mother and her 2 true daughters who live for the sole purpose to finish her work. When the last of the Magnani saplings is planted on the last of humanity's dying worlds, the entwine that binds the omniverse to all that is good will be complete, and a web of consciousness that reflects that good will prevail over all. The only caveat to this understanding is that whatever is not of this good will either be extinguished or transmuted, which essentially means the forces that could conceive themselves as darkness or emptiness are now on the defensive to preserve their very lives. The only conclusion Kai could come to under the circumstances was that the tree was connected to all the elements somehow. Either the tree made them work, or the other elements made the tree work. Maybe the pyramid garden was just practice, or better, a temporary solution to an eternal consequence. Her inventory now included number 10, purple vessel containing mystic church soil, and number 11, Magnani sapling. What if it was more than that? Something deep within her told her that it was, that she was missing something fundamental. Could they all be parts of the same whole? If so, were they purposefully kept apart, only to be brought back together at some point? Of course, she had no idea. She wasn't fully sure how to find out. The only thing that gave her solace was at least she had an idea of what she was working with. Parts of a whole. But parts of a whole what? What would happen if her theory is correct and all the pieces actually got together and morphed into one big thing? What then? De Vasquez did say the ancients and mystics had been trying to harness its power since the beginning of time. What would that mean for whoever got them all together? Was this why Lara was acting so edgy? Was having all these pieces in the same building putting them all at risk? Did Lara know something, or someone was coming for them specifically? Dun dun dun. Or was she anticipating what De Vasquez called the forces that could conceive themselves as darkness or emptiness, fighting for their very survival by trying to thwart the transition? What else could be out there? She knew about her father and the gray faces. In one of her visions, she had disbanded the lot of Lucifer's minions. Could it get much worse than the devil? Some winged demons and a band of psychic trash-wheeling, gray-faced Frankensteins? She couldn't imagine, nor did she want to. She had so many questions and not nearly as many resources to find answers. Maybe it was time to do some investigating of a different sort. But first, she had a nagging feeling about the piece she had written earlier. She didn't want to merely stare at it on her computer screen. She wanted others of Earth to know that change was coming and to get prepared. Even if only a few read her words, it was a few more than before. Kai thought aloud. Her family certainly wouldn't be the ones to tell them. If they had their way, the people of Earth would be none the wiser than when the transition actually happened. Just like the original people of the planet now known as Tustai. Those people just woke up one day and they were different. They became as the 7-year-old original mother wanted, and they had no say. Of course, that planet was destitute and left for dead. The little girl was literally their only hope. Earth is different. Its inhabitants are still sentient. They aren't destitute. They're just afraid. If anything, critical mass for Earthlings would be just as powerful as a Styi intervention. Maybe the two seemingly opposing forces would work together somehow toward the same goal. So the people of Earth had a say in what they evolved into, rather than merely the Styi version of things. Most of Earth was embracing the concept of democracy anyway. Earthlings are notoriously a melting pot. We even still have our animals, she thought. Kai's process was swift. It wasn't long before she was pressing the publish button for her new blog post. Seconds later, Shift of the People was available for any and every willing soul to read on the blog she aptly named They Know Us by Our Stars. Woo! That was like a freaking college course. And I have to say that I went through that and went through it and went through it and went through it and went through it, and there was no other way. So I'm going to say that chapters 9 and 10 are the most intense because there's no dialogue. It's really just Kai processing. But she has to process in the exact, yes, it is very deep. She has to process in that exact way. And it's also because all those things that she just, all of that college stuff right there, all of that spiritual, all of that, you need all of it. And I tried. And you know what? I realized that most of the story, throughout all three of these books, most of the story, you know what? It might be my light that's making everything yellow. I think I need a new battery. This is not a story for people that aren't dedicated. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not, it is deep, and it is, you know, spiritual, but it, you know, it's not, I don't know. This is like, come on now. So there's some things that, you know, you want to make lighter, and you really can't. You just have to let the story be what it is. I feel like the story was channeled. I feel like there was something bigger than me that had me write it. This is stuff that I wouldn't, you know, necessarily just go, oh, you know what? I think I'm going to write a deep ass story. But I think it has enough lighter moments and relaxed moments that the information can take its time and sink in. So it is what it is. Do you have any questions? A lot of the stuff that was going on in chapters 9 and 10 were really taking actual clues from books 1 and book 2 and putting them into, oh, welcome, Mecca, we're finished now. Thank you for joining us. They were taking clues, like actual clues that happened in book 1 and happened in book 2, and putting them into a cohesive piece. And that's why chapters 9 and 10 were so kind of heavy, because all those pieces of that puzzle had to come together in order for the story to be able to move forward. And you know, as deep as it was, it was a monologue, you know, it was kind of Kai processing all this stuff and realizing, holy shit, it's going to be more holy shit. So so now you see why she has so much pressure. Now you understand, once reading that, and however you feel, if you feel heavy, like, now imagine as the story progresses and what happens in chapters 11 and 12, which we'll read tomorrow, you'll understand exactly why what happens, because it's a lot. And couple that with her ex, which is a piece of the puzzle. Is he low grade stalking her? Like, those are all pieces to your puzzle. And then what's the other thing? The issue with her husband and how everything came to be. You know, Kai has some trust issues, and if you're going to be on a spiritual journey, the one thing you cannot have, but always seems to come up, is trust issues. You have to trust something that you can't see. You know, you have to trust that there's something bigger than you that's guiding your process, and you have to trust that you're going to be okay in the end. That's a lot of trust. So, you know, Kai's trust issues, really, you know, trying to trust that everything that's happening in her life is for a good reason. That's hard, especially when you're looking at what she's dealing with. It's like, excuse me, this don't sound like it makes sense. And so, Will, Megan, hi, Will. You said, what's your inspiration to write? I'm going to say I write, a part of it is an experiment. I think when I first wrote, when I wrote the first book, it was a challenge. I had a few friends who kind of challenged me, but one of my really, really dear friends challenged me to write the story. I had written some notes in one of my journals, and I just so happened we were having a conversation. It was this deep kind of spiritual, the Matrix conversation, and you know, I had written these things, and I read it to him, and he was like, "Oh, you need to write that story." And I was like, me? I'm not going to write a book. I used to write scripts, but I had never finished any. And so my biggest issue with myself was that I would really just start this thing and I wouldn't finish it. Because I have boxes full of started and unfinished scripts, like you would not even believe. And I never really saw myself as an author, like a book writer. I saw myself as I would be writing movies. So definitely. The way he framed the conversation, well, why don't you write the book and then write the movie? But still, my nagging fear was, well, I'm just going to start this and I'm not going to finish it. But because I had a sounding board and I was able to write and then read it and write and read it, I had like a built-in audience for my writing process. I finished the book. Now, it wasn't finished by finished standards, because it was actually like 5 years later or something crazy before I actually was able to publish it. But no, it was longer than that. but just knowing that I could finish something that was just shy of 300 pages. I wrote a book that had a beginning, a middle, and an end. And, you know, having the confidence to know that you could do it. Yeah, I believe it could transition into a movie. And because I want to say that because I started writing scripts for movies first, that's why it kind of, it's very visual. It's a very visual story. It's very descriptive because I literally write pictures in my head. And so to answer your question, Omega, my muse is I have these pictures in my head. And I don't really necessarily, like, I have the characters, I have, you know, I see them and all that stuff, but I'm not one of those writers that have, like, conversations going on in my head. I really see scenes. And so the way the muse presents itself is that I'll see scenes playing out, like almost like a movie. And my job is to take whatever I've seen and write it out. And so the story kind of unfolds that way. And then I also don't write an outline. And that's why I say that these stories are channeled, because it is a study in trust, where, you know, I get this, and it's very different than daydreaming. It's like a pop, and it's very vivid, and I'm just like in it for a moment, and sometimes longer than that. And then I go to the computer and I'm writing, and I have to describe everything that I see in like crazy nutty detail, like everything. And then after, you know, I write it out, it's almost like I have to write until I get backed up against the wall, and then I can stop. And then it's like the next day, the wall opens up, and there's no outline. It's just trusting the process that the story is going to go where the story is going to go. And it's scary and it's fun, and I'm always surprised at what comes out. So all the stuff that you've been hearing for the last week, all these chapters, these were not planned out. There was no, you know, necessarily character development. They all unfolded organically in a very divine spiritual process. To answer your question, Bernard, I have actually reopened some of my old scripts. I've revisited them to see if there was something that I can do with them. But what I decided is that there's so much here with the Stellar Trilogy. There's so much here that I'm developing this series into a TV series, and it will make sense. The next book will make sense. The next book, like book 4, will make sense. And the TV series will make sense because it's based off of what's going to happen. But like, I can't tell you because I don't have it. I'm not saying I have it written out. Like, this new book and the new series is not, I'm not doing it any differently. It's still an inspired piece. But what I am saying is that I've gotten the understanding, that inspiration, that there's a TV show in that. And it's very cool because it's kind of like Law and Order, but it's not. So it's not like Law and Order. Whatever. How long have I been a vegetarian? That is a long story. I was a vegetarian prior to having my daughter for 16 years. And then what had happened was I needed iron. And so I was craving steak throughout my pregnancy, well, the tail end of my pregnancy. And so I had steak. And then I stopped eating meat again, I want to say about a year ago. Now I'm just about vegan. I'm vegan-esque. Not quite totally vegan, but somewhat vegan. I don't eat dairy or any of that. Your questions are really good today, guys. Nice question and answer session. Any other questions? Any other questions? And what are the odds that I don't have enough batteries for my light? The odds are good. Any other questions about the story? Anyone? No? I have to give room for the delay. No? Okay. Well, mañana we will be reading chapters 11 and chapters 12. My eating habits make me feel like, why? I'm no judgment zone. You can eat whatever you want, boo. Let me tell you how. Oh, look at that. The light is so much better. That's why it's so yellow in here, because my light was dying. That's not why. You can see it's still yellow in here. Oh, this is so bright. Oh, you thought I was just perfectly lit before because I didn't have a light? No. Wait a minute. Hold on. Wait a minute. You just eat fish. Okay. This is how things have. This light is too bright now. Sorry, it's nighttime. I need to take it down a notch. That's better. So, the thing about food with me is that everything becomes an evolution, and so it's part of the spiritual journey. I believe the lighter you get, the more you work on your spiritual practice, the less stuff works, if that makes any sense. So it becomes an evolution. Like I said, I was a vegetarian for 16 years. I was a horrible vegetarian. I was probably the worst vegetarian in the history of all vegetarians ever that vegetarianed. Like, I was really, really bad. I didn't know how food worked. I worked out all the time. Like, I was crazy workoutable, but I was just terrible. And I did eat cheese and I did eat milk, and I ate every veggie burger, which is processed. I was just bad. Like, it was horrible. But we didn't have access to all this information that we had back then. It was just kind of like I didn't know why I wanted to be a vegetarian. I just knew that meat offended me and I didn't want to put it in my body. And there's a very clever story that goes with that, but we just you know what it is. Like, some of the crap we eat is crap. And so it just turned out that after I had my daughter, I started to really understand how food worked, and I became far healthier eating meat than I ever was. This is terrible going on here. Than I ever was being a vegetarian. So it was a process. And the process kept evolving. And so I want to say, like, a year ago, I wasn't eating any processed food. I got to the point where I understood how food works tremendously. I'd done a million thousand cleanses. I studied food. I studied how food works. I studied nutrition and all of that stuff. So I have an understanding of how food works. It was a just different, like doublings. I don't know what that is. It was just a different experience. And so getting my health in order through food and being able to heal myself through food. And then I got to the point where I evolved when I started making my own, products. Now it was about getting the toxicity out of my body. It's been an evolution. It wasn't like one day I woke up and said, I'm going to really be the vegetarian part was, but like I said, I was bad at it because I had no information. And then even when I was eating meat, there was an evolution to that, and I became very healthy. And then once I got to the point where I was very healthy, I understood food or whatever, and I reached a kind of a pinnacle, then the meat went away. It was a natural progression. It wasn't something that, and I think that's the best way to do it. You allow the progression. You willingly allow the evolution, and you will always be getting better. And so there's no pressure. You don't have to stop eating meat today. My daughter is not a vegetarian at all. She started out that way when she was a baby, through to when she was a toddler. But everybody in my family eats meat. and I can preach to the high heavens about, a more healthful lifestyle. Fuckers don't listen to me. And they got health issues all crazy. We had stroke, heart attack, all kinds of stuff. And even after they have these cataclysmic health events, they still doing what they want to do. So you gotta let people live. What is a doubling? I don't know what a doubling is. Will, what is a doubling? And I do eat pecans. I make stuff with pecans. I have, like I said I'm vegan-ish. Like, in a bind, I will not be starving. So, I will eat cheese on a bet. I will eat baked goods that have been baked with eggs or whatever, or butter. But I tend not to on a daily basis. So those are like few and far between. But I'm not the one that's going to be in a restaurant that is not a vegan restaurant or doesn't have any vegetarian choices. I'm not going to be the one sitting there eating lettuce. Like, no. It's not happening. But I do lean towards vegan recipes. So I figured out how to make all kinds of stuff that you wouldn't even realize is vegan. I make biscuits, like down home, down south, slap your grandmama biscuits that are completely vegan. I make this tofu scramble that you would be hard pressed to figure out it was tofu. So good. I've made a tuna salad. Let me tell you something. I have never been a tuna fish person, but I have made a tuna salad that tastes so much like tuna, you're confused. Like, there's so many things that, and it's made with nuts. It's made with walnuts and I want to say there's cashews in it or something else, and nori flakes, or it's stunning. Like, it's amazing. Like, you will really be trying to figure out why you eat tuna fish that has all those chemicals in it. I mean, there's so many things, and I'm always doing recipes. I don't eat regular ice cream. I don't eat regular ice cream. I go to the health food store and I get my nice cream. So any time I have the choice to do vegan, I will do vegan. It's only in a bind, like that I'm more vegetarian. And I always eat honey, so I guess I'm not a vegan anyway. I don't know what he meant, Raj, and he didn't clarify. So any other questions? Facebook Live cuts you off after 90 minutes, and this was a long session. So we're gonna be out. Anyone? Going once. Going twice. All right, so tomorrow, chapters 11 and 12. Get ready. They're not nearly as brain dump as these last two, so it'll be a little lighter, but not much. And remember, tomorrow morning at 11:11 a.m. we do Stop, Drop, and Meditate. So if you can join us, I would love to have you join the party. Lovianhal friends, again, thank you so much, and thank you, peace, love, and light to you, Raj. Thank you for taking this ride. I'm so excited that we get to read the story together. All right, y'all, peace.